Hi there, it's Nicole here today with one of my favorite techniques, which is creating a one-layer card. This particular card features two things. I call it extreme masking, which means there's lots and lots of masking, there's absolutely no die cutting, and there's some stenciling to fill in the background, plus it's a tri-fold card. So it means it's got an extended scene, masking, and all of this stenciling. Everything is one layer. There is absolutely nothing that is dimensional here. To create this, I find it works best with some Bristol Smooth cardstock. This has been trimmed down to 5.5 by 12 inches. So it's going to be slightly narrower than a traditional A2 card because an A2 card is 5.5 inches by 4.25. This is going to measure 5.5 inches by 4 inches. I like to take a pencil, draw a pencil line at the 4 and the 8-inch mark so I know kind of where my card is going to naturally have a seam. That way I don't accidentally put a face or something right where the card is going to bend. And then I'm simply drawing in my landscape. I will be stenciling that Drifts and Hills border from My Favorite Things, but I need to do that after my stamping. Then I went ahead and laid out all my images. I think that the Tea with Friends and Picnic with Friends stamp sets from the latest Mama Elephant release work so perfectly together. So we're going to be creating a forest scene with all of these little bunnies, the birds, and even the little cat. The only critters I'm not using are the foxes from the Picnic with Friends, and that's just because I really felt like I had enough already. What I like to do is, because this is going to be colored with Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. Something really important to me when creating a trifold card is what I use to color. And in this case, I would recommend Zig markers because they're not going to bleed through the paper, or colored pencils. A alcohol ink marker will go through the paper, and I don't want to be able to see any of that bleed through on the back side. I want it to be completely white. Then I stamp the images. Because I will be coloring these with Zigs, I'm using the VersaFine ONYX black ink, which creates a beautiful black stamped impression. I apologize, my head is in the way. I really needed to get that chair lined up perfectly, and I just couldn't do it without leaning over my table completely. After I stamp the image, I'm going to stamp it again without re-inking it because the ink is a pigment ink and it's very wet for a while. So I like to just go ahead and stamp it off again, the second generation stamping, onto my masking paper, and then cut that out and place my mask in place. It is time consuming, but I think it is so worth it. There is no white outline from die cutting all these little images. It's a complete seamless scene, especially where it's a trifold. It makes it really easy to fold up and put in an envelope. It's not going to be terribly thick. Another thing to note is I like to lay everything out. It gives me a really good idea what goes in the forefront because that needs to be stamped first. For example, that cat, it needed to be stamped before the bunny because it's going to be standing in front of the largest, or the mama bunny. The little bunny sitting on the chair needs to be stamped first, then the chair, so it appears he's sitting in the chair. There isn't a ton of overlap in the rest of the design. That was most of it right there with those two examples. The rest of it really didn't require any masking in that respect. However, I do need masks for all of these images because I'm going to be doing so much inking to build up that background. If you didn't want to do the masking, you could definitely hand draw in your background, hand color in your background, and just go around your images. So that's something you could do if you wanted to save a little time maybe. Also, anything that's really light, you could color over. I felt more comfortable masking everything this time just because I didn't want to be careful with where the ink goes. Zigs and Distress inks are both water-based. They're going to work together. So if the mask would roll up a little bit and you need to color over it, there are a couple of examples of this. One is I did not cut out that thin table umbrella stand. I didn't mask that. I cut out the top of the mask and the tabletop only as masks. I didn't mask the rest of it. I'm going to ink right over that, and then I'll just color over it with a red marker later. You'll never see any of the blue from the sky in that, or even a little tip of green from where it's going to overlap there on the bottom. I guess there is a little overlap here. The teapot is going to be back behind one of the bunnies. I kind of forgot I did that. But look how fabulous these two stamp sets work together to really create this extended scene. So super cute, but you have to kind of, I think, maybe visualize what you want that background to look like. And for me, one of my go-tos for outdoor scenes are drifts and hills to create a landscape, clouds for a sky. You could also incorporate maybe a mountain border would be really cute here. And then some clouds. You could do sunshine, all kinds of different things. Before you start inking, I highly recommend getting rid of your pencil line. I drew it in very, very light, so I just kind of erased it very gently. And then we're going to start with the landscape, move on to the cloudy sky, and finish with the trees in the foreground. The ink is going to be dark enough that it will go over that light blue of the sky, so you don't have to worry about that here. So starting with that landscape, coloring that in, this is where the masks come in so handy. You can see I don't have to worry about going around them, making sure I get rid of any pencil lines that maybe I missed. Then I flip it around a lot. Also keep in mind, I cleaned my Easy Clean mat in between the green and the blue. I don't want that green ink to rub off from the mat onto the back of my card. Just like it was really important that the markers I use don't bleed through the paper, I don't want my ink to smudge up the back of my card as well. I want it to look really pretty and professional and not have any ink smudges. Gently, gently, very lightly coloring, doing 3 rows here of clouds. You can see I just kind of keep moving my stencil across the paper. It is only 6 inches wide, so it's not going to fit the whole way. Maybe not even quite that, but I just like move it across, and it's a nice seamless transition. Then I'm going to use this tree stencil from Tim Holtz. It is my go-to. I love it. It's layered woodland trees. So I'm starting with my lightest color, which is going to be Mowed Lawn, same color I used as my landscape. And then I'm going to move on to the Lucky Clover for the layering here. I have used lots of different color combinations. I knew I was going for very springtime bright colors here, so I chose more springy colors for my trees. I want everything to coordinate really well. You can start to see it come together. Something about the tree stencil is I like to mask it off so I don't accidentally get in any of those other masked areas with a little Post-it tape, and I like to clean it often because it's going to smudge if too much ink gets through it, and I'm going to leave that in the video here because I want you to see how you can fix that. I've talked about it before in videos, but Bristol Smooth cardstock is forgiving. A little bit of my ink got through my stencil and it's going to smudge up in my background, which really, really bothers me. So I'm cleaning it really good. I keep cleaning in between doing the large and the small. And the problem really came with the small tree. There's more of those than the large tree, and especially the Lucky Clover ink just kind of kept bleeding through. So let's get the bases of the rest of my little trees here, and you can really see the scene starting to take shape. When I pull those masks off, I always feel like it's kind of magic. I always look forward to that step because it's so fun. You can wet the tip of a paper towel, that's what I'm showing right here, and just kind of dab up any ink that got where it's not supposed to go. Make sure it's a clean paper towel or rag and just a tiny bit of water. Don't rub back and forth, but kind of just dab that ink up that gets where it's not supposed to be. Again, cleaning that stencil often. It's kind of a pain, but so worth it so you don't ruin your project. You've already gone through all the effort of stamping and masking. You don't want to ruin it at this point. So here, just moving my way across again, and I see again that it's smudged already. So cleaning up a couple little areas, the sooner you do it, the better. Once the ink has dried, it's not going to work as well, but if you do it right away, it works great. I also want to mention the ink stays wet for quite a while, especially on this Bristol Smooth cardstock. So you can get your hand in it like when you're coloring the images in, if you don't either take a heat tool and dry the ink or let it sit overnight. I did start to color this, but then it was later in the day. I stepped away, came back the next day, and everything was dry. It really works a lot better that way. I could have hit it with a heat tool as well. I've removed the masks, so there is my cute scene. Another idea I'd like to share with you is if you're sending this to a child, this is the point where you could send it like this. And they could go ahead and color it in themselves if they wanted to. If that's something that you think that they would enjoy, I think that would be super, super fun. I am adding sentiments from both the Picnic with Friends and Tea with Friends, one from each, one for the front panel and one on the back panel, kind of down at the bottom. And that'll finish it off really nicely. We're going to start coloring in the bunnies. I tried really hard to just color in one color combination at a time. So my bunnies are all going to be mid-brown and oatmeal for the bunnies, and then blush and flesh color for the insides of the ear. I like to add my dark color around the outside and then pull that dark color out to get the nice shading effect with my lighter color, and it gives you a nice look this way. So that's how I am coloring in all of the bunnies. The 2 bunnies from Tea with Friends, and then the 3 bunnies from Picnic with Friends, kind of over on the right side or on the inside fold out portion. Dark color first, pull that out with the lighter color. Don't forget the little bunny tails. Some blush color also for the cheeks on the bunnies. And it's like magic, I believe, or for me anyway, watching these come to life as you start coloring them in. And you can get so much detail and dimension by creating cards like this, but yet they're still relatively flat. They're going to mail wonderfully. No die cutting, which is sometimes I think it's really nice to maybe not die cut everything. There's a lot of little images here, so that would be a lot of die cutting if you were to create this card with die cuts. Another reason I prefer to do a 1-layer card with a trifold card a lot of times is I don't have to be real conscious of where that seam is all the time, because I'm not trying to put a score line through a die cut image as well as the card base. So that's a little tip for you. If you like to create trifold cards, but you really don't like having to go through multiple layers because it can be a lot of work. I've done some in the past. I have them up on my channel. But this is my preferred way of doing that. Another thing to note, you may have noticed I have not scored my card yet. It is really best if you wait to score your card until you are completely finished, with at least inking the background and coloring over anything that's going to go over the seam. Otherwise, your inks or other coloring mediums tend to want to pool up where that seam is. So I have learned over time to go ahead and wait and not score my card until I'm completely finished. The birds are next with cobalt blue, light blue, and a little bright yellow for the beaks, even a little blush for the cheeks on the birds, and I'm going to work my way across the card starting left to right, just like I did with the bunnies. It's really starting to come together now. And I found it easiest to just kind of work with one image at a time and work my way across the design. I do think some mountains in the background would have been kind of cute here. Maybe next time. Here's that last little bird swooping in from up above the treetops. These birds are darling. I love that there are so many different options with the Tea with Friends stamp set from Mama Elephant. I think they will work with lots of different stamp sets. So now we're going to move on to the next part of the design. I think we'll color in probably the umbrella and the table next. Maybe everything that is red and pink, or try to do as much of that as possible. And I flip my paper around a lot while I'm coloring to keep my hand out of what I've already colored and out of the other ink as much as possible. So I'm going to have a red and pink striped umbrella on my table with so many greens, blues, and neutrals from what I've done already, from the sky and the landscape, the trees and the critters. I decided to do pops of color pretty much everything else. Lots of reds, pinks, there's going to be a little yellow, some purple, and that's pretty much it. I tried to kind of limit my colors so I wasn't using too many, but to still have a nice assortment and have some nice pops of color throughout the design. So the little tablecloth, we're going to do red and white check. I think that shows up nicely. The tops of the cherries are red. And I'm going to come back to the teacups and saucers, the little teapot, cupcakes, all of those things I really kind of just came back to. I started to color them, but I wasn't exactly sure at this point what color I wanted everything to be. And really, the reds and pinks there were the last thing I colored before I let this sit completely overnight. I did get my hand in it once, luckily in the green of the trees. I didn't smear it, and I just thought, you know what, this is crazy, so I let it sit, and I came back the next day. The dress on the bunny is going to be kind of the colors are actually blue and shadow mauve, but I really think it kind of gives a bluish purple color. It's one of my favorite color combinations with the zig markers. And then the yellow apron really offsets that nicely. And we'll add some finishing touches to some of the images when we're completely done. And we'll make the pocket match her dress on that apron. So now I've decided to do some pink frosting on my cupcakes. Sugared almond ink, pink, not ink, pink, light pink. The cat is going to be also in some neutrals. This is another favorite color combination, brown and light brown. They call those colors brown, but I really feel they kind of have that orange look to them. I'm going to go in with my brown then after I've blended the colors out and draw in some little tabby stripes. The faces are a little bit muted, I think, once you've colored over them. And I will go in with a black jelly roll pen and add detail to the eyes, a fine tip pen and add some eyelashes later on. I'm coloring in the cupcake wrappers with light pink and then drawing in some little lines with a purple marker to give them a little bit of interest. And this is the finishing. We're just going in with whatever colors we have left and adding in lots of color. So because there's some yellow in her apron, I really felt like I needed to have some more yellow over on the right side of the card and some more red. Red, pink, and yellow is really kind of what I'm going to concentrate on for almost everything else here. So the little teacups, the teapot, anything like that. Just kind of finish filling it all in, make sure everything gets colored. And the little overalls on the bunny sitting in the chair, I decided to go with yellow, and we'll do that last. Got one more little teacup here, and then here are my yellows. This is it. This is all of the coloring. So once the coloring is complete, we're going to take our score buddy and we are going to score the card at 4 1/8 which I actually end up just doing it 4 inches from one end, and then I flip it over so that it folds the right way and score it 4 inches from the other. That's going to make 3 4 by 5.5 inch panels. Then I'm going to tri-fold this And then take a Teflon bone folder and gently, gently score down those sides. I'm going to fold it back out now and take my black jelly roll pen and go over the eyes. Make sure and do the birds, the bunnies, the cat, anything that needs a little bit of definition. Take a fine tip pen if you want to, add in some little eyelashes for some of the birds, the mama bunny, one of the little bunnies sitting if you want to. Add some nice detail. Where there's not layers here, I like to find as many ways as possible to add as much detail as possible. Adding some little dots to the umbrella. One thing I have found with my white pen is when you first put it on, it's really white. As it dries, I don't know if it's because of the water-based markers with the zigs, but it kind of fades. But you can still see the detail, and for me, that's good enough. I even made the Mama Bunny's dress polka dot, as well as the little pocket on her apron. I'll add white dots to the cheeks on the bunnies and the birds. And that is going to really finish off, even, I guess I did add some little detail to the teapot. Maybe even the tops of the cherries on the cupcakes, but I don't think those showed up very well. I added a little highlight to the apple. Anything like that that you want to add, just a last little finishing bit to maybe, because I don't think you can see it on the cups and saucers or the teacups very well. And then you simply fold it up and it folds open. So much fun, so easy, and just a great project and a great card that goes through the mail perfectly. Thanks for joining me today for this extreme masking trifold card featuring Mama Elephant stamps and dies. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring trifold cards that you might be interested in. Please subscribe for weekly card making and stamping videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.